Hey everybody, welcome to Bible Over Beer. I'm Steve.
I'm Randy.
Salute!
Good to be back in the studio.
Covered in the first part, we decided to divide it in half. We're going to try some different things tonight. It might be a lot of details like before, or we're going to try to thin it out, the videos. We can't promise.
Okay.
Maybe long. It's fun to talk about. We enjoy this in conversation. But we're going to try to start more kind of talking about what...
We can't help ourselves. It's so hard to leave pieces out.
Yeah, we feel like we're teaching, and then no, we don't mind if you want to just listen to us. But the important part is to read and join along in the journey. And if we're giving all the details, maybe you think that we're giving enough, and that's not the point. The point is to discuss for him and I to learn. So
the video could be 45, 50 minutes long. We are skipping a lot.
Oh yeah,
so get in there and read it, please.
So as we normally do, I'm going to let you roll with it. So
1 Kings, chapter 1. Adonijah sets himself up as king. So this is one of David's sons. King David is very old and cold. They find him a young virgin whose name is Abishag to lie next to the king for warmth and to take care of. Not a sexual relationship. This is strictly just to take care of the man.
So interesting that you say that. And I'm going to jump in a couple times too. So Adonijah, if you listen to the Bible, we get that's where we're going to learn the names, the pronunciations of them, because that one kept bugging me. I still trying to say it right. But Abishag. So why was he cold? Well, according to Bible for Dummies, that's code for the king is supposed to proliferate. That's one of his duties, is to kind of procreate. He couldn't perform with his normal wives, so they went to find the super hot chick to do it. But they made note that he couldn't have relations. Okay. So is that true? Bible for Dummies says it.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Now, the son, Adonijah, who decided, I'm going to be king now, whose mother was Haggith, put himself forward and said, I will be king. Joab, who was the head of David's army, along with Abiathar the priest, gave him their support, which I just thought was strange. But
yeah, and again, another name too is we've been saying Abiathar for a long time. It's Abiathar. Yeah. Abiathar the priest.
Thank you.
Which
Abiathar. So
jumping in, it is interesting because Joab was his right hand man from David, and even bigger was Adonijah. His second oldest son. So we had Absalom, which we knew was bad from Second Samuel. And now the other one. Apparently, there's a pattern we're seeing is that the kids are bad, and it's not necessarily the kids' faults. In the end, it is, but I think the parenting, as we learn through these, they're not correcting. So this is, he decides to take it amongst himself to be king, and why? Who does that?
yeah, exactly. I think it's bizarre, but hey, he wanted the power and he was going to just take it, I guess. So the new king, the son, sacrificed sheep, cattle, fattened calves at the zone of Zoheleth near En Regal. He invited all his brothers, the king's sons, all the royal officials of Judah. But Zodok the priest, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, Nathan the prophet, Shammai, and Ray, and David's special guard did not join in that celebration. His mother, Bathsheba, confronted King David while he allowed this to happen. I'm sorry. This would be Solomon's mother. Yep. Bathsheba confronted the king. Why did you allow this to happen, basically? My lord, you yourself swore to me, your servant by the Lord God. Solomon, your son, shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne. That's verse 17. Nathan then walked in and asked, have you, my lord the king, declared that Adonijah shall be king after you, and that he will sit on your throne? So there's some confusion there.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in a little bit. So to set that up, those are the details to it. But it was a plan because Nathan heard about this. So he went to Bathsheba, and said, hey, did you know what's going on? So he devised the plan. You go tell the king, and then I'll jump in and I'll back you up. And that's where he left off.
Exactly right. He kind of told her what to do. David makes Solomon king. David said to Bathsheba, I will surely carry out, verse 30, I will surely carry out this very day what I swore to you by the Lord, the God of Israel. Solomon, your son, shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne in my place. Solomon was anointed king in Gahan by Zodok the priest. Music was played, and the people rejoiced. The ground shook. Adonijah and all the guests who were with him heard this as they were finishing their feast. Jonathan, son of Abiathar, the priest, arrived. Yeah. Thank you. It said in verse 43, our Lord the King David has made Solomon king Moreover, Solomon has taken a seat on the royal throne. At this, all of Adonijah's guests rose in alarm and dispersed. But Adonijah, in fear of Solomon, went and took hold of the horns of the altar in fear of Solomon. Then King Solomon sent men, and they brought him down from the altar. And Adonijah came and bowed down to King Solomon, and Solomon said, "Go to your home." He was going to have him come in front of him and sort of see what his attitude was and decide, am I going to kill him, or am I just going to kind of send him on his way? So
Yeah, but it's kind of an intriguing, and maybe we have to go back in our other videos, but what makes, so I can kind of see why Adonijah wanted to be king. He's second oldest. He figures he's the right, but where does Solomon come in? I think as everybody know, we know her of Solomon. So it was interesting.
did he consider Solomon to be a bastard?
No, he married. So he married Bathsheba.
Right.
After
But he impregnated her first, I thought.
Yeah,
Maybe, I don't know.
No, he married her so he wouldn't be. And
Okay.
so that was the Lord's plan. I mean, Solomon was, we'll learn, is pretty awesome. But it's interesting. The brother didn't want to be killed, and it's like
Yeah, absolutely.
So on to chapter 2.
Chapter 2, David's charge to Solomon. When the time drew near for David to die, he gave a charge to Solomon his son. Verse 2, I am about to go to the way of the earth. So be strong, act like a man, etc. And he gave him some things that he wants him to do when he's king. Number 1 would be to kill Joab.
Aha.
Show kindness to the sons of Barzillai of Gilead. Third one would be kill Shammai, who called down bitter curses on me the day I went to Mahanaim. And 4, David dies and rule. Oh wait, that's not what he tells him, but in the end, David dies and he had ruled 40 years.
So interesting. I'm going to bring it up, and I'm trying not to drag on, but Joab was not killed when he killed Abner in Amasa, because David was furious, but he's had enough blood in his hands through wars. But and then Shammai, which I was perplexed why he didn't kill him either. Mm-hmm. But
yeah,
now he's killing him in the end.
Joab had just did some cold-blooded murders. It wasn't during battle, and he's gonna meet his end.
Yes.
Solomon's throne established. Adonijah went to Bathsheba and asked, "Please ask King Solomon, he will not refuse you, to give me Abishag the Shunammite as my wife." So she asked Solomon, and he was angered. In verse 22, "You might as well request a kingdom for him," he said. So King Solomon gave orders to Manasseh, son of Jehoiada, and he struck down Adonijah, and he died. He wanted the virgin that kept his dad warm.
Well, what I understand about that is that was a young, beautiful person, and if he could have a kid where the king goes back to the sex, where he didn't have sex, but if he was able to procreate with the king's wife or young servant, whatever, then he would have the royal line, and would usurp. So, but it was a ploy. I mean, what an idiot! This guy has no morals apparently. So.
Exactly right. Solomon removed Abiathar from the priesthood of the Lord, fulfilling the word of the Lord that had spoken at Shiloh about the house of Eli. So remember that, right? He's going to bring the house of Eli down. Huh? Then Solomon ordered Manasseh, son of Jehoiada, go strike down Joab. And he did in the tent of the Lord, where Joab had fled in fear. The king put Manasseh, son of Jehoiada, over the army in Joab's position and placed Abiathar with Zodok the priest. Replaced Abiathar with Zodok the priest. Shimei was told to build a house in Jerusalem and not leave it. So basically house arrest.
Yep.
If he leaves, he's going to be put to death. So he's warned.
Yep.
What happens? About 3 years later, he has 2 slaves that run away. And he leaves to go find them, finds them, brings them back. And so for that, Solomon had Manasseh, son of Jehoiada, strike him dead.
Yep. Manasseh is the new Joab, apparently.
I would have just built myself a 100,000 square foot palace and be happy and never leave. But hey, whatever. Yeah,
especially since all the stuff he did. I mean, he came down and bowed down to David when he crossed the Jordan and was becoming the king in 2 Samuel. Now David's passed, and son,
yep,
get rid of my enemies. But it's a good thing. I mean, there's a bigger point. The Bible of Dummies paraphrased it, and I think this is a history lesson to it, possibly, is when a new king is transitioned, there's questionable power, and any enemies will kind of rear their heads again. So David was providing him with some good advice.
Yeah, that makes sense. Solomon asks for wisdom. This part I really liked. I really liked this part. Solomon made an alliance with the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married his daughter. He built a palace and a temple of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream and said, ask for whatever you want me to give you. That's tempting. That would be tempting, wouldn't it? And in verse 9, Solomon says, give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? The Lord loved that answer.
He was actually, he was smitten or tickled pink, however you want to say it.
But not only that, he said, you didn't ask for wealth. You didn't ask for fame or fortune. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give those to you anyways.
Yeah, I mean, because of what you asked for was not for yourself. It was for the leadership, which is what he wanted.
So smart.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think Solomon, he understood the gravity of this. He knew he wasn't smart enough. I know I wouldn't.
Well, I think he was very young too. I gather when David was giving him instruction on his deathbed, do the verses you said. He was a young guy, so he's like, I'm over my head, and he knew it. Which
that's it.
It's
exactly
pretty good.
Very good.
Kind of like how David started out,
Right.
Although David had confidence.
So that's a good example just for life. Be humble, do what's right. Don't go out and seeking fame and fortune and do anything to get it. Things just have a way when you're a good person to come around to you. Wisdom from Randy, we'll call that.
There you go.
All right.
And I will add, good people, according to what we're reading, is impossible, as we're finding out. But if you have God as your focus, it happens. So
do your best. A wise ruling. 2 prostitutes came to David. So David's, a
I
judge.
like this part.
One accuses the other of taking her son because hers died and switched them while she slept. So they both had babies that they slept with. One died. The one came over and switched, right? She wanted the live baby. David offers to cut the child in half. That's how we'll solve this problem. The woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him. So the mother was coming to this baby's rescue. And David obviously saw that this was a real mother and said, give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother.
And that was extremely profound to the people in Israel, because they sought Solomon's counsel, because the one prostitute that stole the child swears that it was hers, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
So it was. I mean, we've seen this in lots of different things too. But I've talked about this over the years. Not me, but we've discussed this in church. It's a significant sign of wisdom, and that really cemented his wisdom. And
just a good example there.
Yeah, how he did it. It's like, wow, who would have thought of that?
So in chapter 4, Solomon's officials and governors. That's the title. And so in verse 1, so King Solomon rules over Israel, and they give a whole list of his officials. Okay, which we're not. We're not going to get into. Obviously,
that's why you read
that on your own.
Yep.
In verse 7, Solomon had 12 district governors over all Israel, who supplied provisions for the king and the royal household. Each one had to provide supplies for 1 month in a year. That makes a lot of sense. I think they're not all burdened with trying to, they each had a month where they had to supply the goods for the king and his court and whatnot. Solomon's daily provisions. That's a whole list. We're not going to get into that again. Bread, wine.
Everything. He's the king.
Yeah.
He is the most prolific.
We're talking about amounts here. 20 loaves of, it gets into all the whole detail.
Everything. It's pretty. It's almost hard to understand why it goes in this, but I think it's to show how much the Lord is blessing Solomon in the provisions he goes through. So
Solomon's wisdom. God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight and a breadth of understanding as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Example. In verse 32, he spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005.
So we're going to get to Proverbs eventually. It's interesting for me to know. I thought David did a lot of the Psalms. He did some too. He was the wisest of all the kings and leaders at the time, and possibly, I want to say ever, but as we'll learn at the end of this discussion,
a lot of people think that way. Exactly.
Yep.
So we are on. We're doing 11 chapters. We're on to chapter 5 already. Preparations for building the temple. So this is Solomon's main task here: temple, castle for himself, And I think I mentioned something else, but I can't remember.
So it's not his main task. I was going to say it was something he, out of his heart, wanted to do for God. Remember, David said he was going to build him a temple.
That's right.
But he had so much blood in his hands that God's like, contrary, I will build you a temple. The temple will be built for the Son. So he's fulfilling the prophecy, which is a short prophecy because it was from his father.
So, chapter 5, verse 1. When Hiram, king of Tyre, heard that Solomon had been anointed king to succeed his father David, he sent his envoys to Solomon because he had always been on friendly terms with David. Solomon asked the king, give orders that cedars of Lebanon be cut for me. My men will work with yours, and I will pay you for your men whatever wages you set. So that's going to be all the wood that he's going to need, plus juniper. They mentioned that later, but to build, obviously, his temple. And they also discussed terms such as food, paying wages. Solomon had thousands of Israelites working, builders, stonecutters, carriers, foremen, supervisors, and etc.
Yeah, it goes into great detail. It's a good read. It goes into detail about not only the materials. There was, like, I'm assuming granite or fine stone, but no stone was shown. It was all covered in the cedar, Lebanese cedar, so it must have smelled amazing. He goes into detail about the cherubim he makes in the holy place where he's going to set the Ark of the Covenant. So and again, it goes over like the rotations. They would work for like 1 month and go home for 2, or the different tribes, and working with the men of Tyre.
Think about the construction of this. We're talking about thousands and thousands of men. We're talking about the wealth that would have been spent to make this happen. Is just
and
unbelievable.
It took 11 years to build.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to his palace.
Chapter 6, Solomon builds the temple.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That was my notes from chapter 6. It took 11 years to build because I just went over all the details from 6.
Yeah, just a couple things here, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it was the 408th year after the Israelites came out of Egypt. In the 4th year of Solomon's reign, that's when they began to build the temple. And they go on to describe the size of the temple.
Just like the ark we read in Genesis. Yeah, in Genesis, all the cubits and
in verse 11, the word of the Lord came to Solomon. Verse 12, this is the Lord. As for this temple you are building. Now, this is the Lord actually speaking to Solomon.
In a dream. What's important.
Thank you. If you follow my decrees, observe my laws, we've heard all this before, and keep all my commands and obey them, I will fulfill through you the promise I gave to David your father. Verse 13, and I will live among the Israelites and will not abandon my people, Israel. And if you don't, we already know the answer to that, okay? Solomon completes the temple, goes on to explain how it's decorated, how the rooms are used, etc.
Yeah, lots of detail materials, yep.
Which is great. It's good to read it.
Yeah. But you are part of this journey with us, so you read while we read.
You read it. 7, I read it, so now you got to read it. 7, it's like a punishment. You're going to read it.
It's not a punishment. It's good for your soul.
Go to the blackboard and, all right. Chapter 7, Solomon builds his palace. It took Solomon 13 years, however, to complete the construction of his palace. They go on to describe the size, the materials used, the dimensions, the rooms, and then we go on to the temple's furnishings.
Details.
King Solomon sent to Tyre and brought Hiram. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Hiram was filled with wisdom, with understanding, and with knowledge to do all kinds of bronze work. So this was a man who was brought into the temple to make everything that needed to be made out of bronze. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about pillars, chains, basins, on and on and on. When the work of King Solomon was done for the temple, the Lord was finished. He brought in the things his father David had dedicated, the silver and gold and furnishings, and he placed them in the treasuries of the Lord's temple. So I just wanted to give a little shout out there to Hiram, the bronze maker.
Exactly, because they go on to mention that a lot of silver wasn't used because it didn't have as much value, but bronze, I think bronze has health issues or health. It's benefits? Good for your health benefits. I think it's like it keeps stuff sterile. You don't spread disease as much. Well, I mean, if you ever go into a lot of buildings, you see a bronze doorknobs, and I did ask one time, how come these are all bronze? And they did say that it
antibacterial.
Yeah, naturally, I don't know.
properties or
I mean,
something.
you still want to wash your hands, but
I would think
yeah,
so.
but so it was interesting too. So it goes into 8. So eight's the one I was going to
The
talk.
ark brought to the temple.
That's it.
Solomon had the ark of the Lord covenant moved from Zion, the city of David. It was placed in the inner sanctuary of the temple, the most holy place, and put beneath the wings of the cherubim. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Nothing in the ark except the 2 stone tablets.
Interesting. That's kind of remember before as we read there was manna,
Yep.
and then there was the staff that they parted the Red Sea with, and that might have been the three items in there. So I was interesting. Does anybody know? Leave us a comment.
And remember, these were the stone tablets that Noah actually chiseled at. Right?
No. I
was testing you.
I almost fell for it. It was Moses.
We're going to keep this. If you want to know what we're talking about here, you're going to have to go back and watch other videos, all right? We're not going to clue you in on this little private joke here we got. But it's not private if you go back and watch other videos. All right. When the priests withdrew from the holy place, a cloud filled the temple of the Lord. And Solomon said in verse 12, the Lord has said that he would dwell in a dark cloud. Verse 13, I have indeed built a magnificent temple for you, a place for you to dwell forever. Solomon then blessed the whole assembly of Israel. He concluded with verse 21, I provided a place there for the ark, in which is the covenant of the Lord that he made with our ancestors when he brought us out of Egypt. Awesome.
Very, very awesome. But it took all these years to have a permanent place. They realized, and you'll read it, when they were going to do their sacrifices at high places he's like, wait, I'm in the city of David, which is Jerusalem. This is where we're going to build the temple. So.
Yep, exactly. 400 and some years after coming out of Egypt. Solomon's prayer of dedication. Okay, so again, this is just a nice long...
Very nice, but very long.
Thing.
Thanks to God.
But I'll tell you how it starts. This is verse 23. Lord, the God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven above or on earth below. You who keep your covenant of love with your servant, who continues wholeheartedly in your way. And it ends with verse 61. So remember, 23 through 61. It's a long one. And may your hearts be fully committed to the Lord our God, to live by his decrees and obey his commands as at this time. So there you go. You get to go through and read that all yourself.
Yep. And it's important because we're going to get into God hears. He hears him.
Exactly.
Well, of course, he's there in the cloud. So
he's everywhere.
He's everywhere, but he's everywhere because he's omnipotent, but he literally is living in that dark cloud. That was God. I guess we forgot to mention that, but that was kind of the pattern. Go back and watch the videos on their Exodus. Anytime the cloud would come down and cover, that's God.
Right.
So, and we continue.
The dedication of the temple. Solomon offered a sacrifice of fellowship offerings to the Lord, 22,000 cattle and 120,000 sheep and goats. So the king and all the Israelites dedicated the temple of the Lord, 14 days of celebration, then he sent them home. That is a lot of animals.
Yep.
Wow. The Lord appeared to Solomon. When Solomon had finished building the temple of the Lord and the royal palace and had achieved all he had desired to do, the Lord appeared to him a second time as he had appeared to him at Gibeon. And basically it's the same thing he had said to David, be faithful, and have integrity, observe decrees and laws, etc. You shall, in verse 5, you shall never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel. But if you don't do these things...
Again, if you don't...
know.
And of course, obviously you're maybe reading into what we're going to get to eventually, but this is the second time God's actually talked to him. And if you're watching our series on discussing, they're literally talking to God. And I'll leave it there until a couple more chapters.
Exactly. Solomon's other activities. At the end of 20 years, during which Solomon built these two buildings, the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, King Solomon gave 20 towns to Galilee to Hiram, king of Tyre, because Hiram had supplied him with all the cedar and juniper and gold that he wanted to build his palace. So this is just kind of funny.
Go ahead.
So
it's a tangent, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he gives these towns, what did I say, 20 towns?
Something like that.
Okay, 20 towns to this king, and the king says, what kind of towns are these, in verse 13, what kind of towns are these that you have given me, my brother, he asked, and he called them the land of Cabal, a name that they have today. He kind of did not like these towns. He thought these towns were a little run down and not so great. what kind of gift is this?
Yeah, but the bigger thing is, what's the point? I mean, I didn't get that. I mean, it was like a tangent.
Right. And I did not look up Land of Cabal. I should have looked that up.
It meant, oh, I forgot to write it down.
Is this something bad?
Yeah, it's like crap.
The slums?
Yeah, kind of like that. It's
Thanks for giving me these pits.
Exactly.
Really appreciate this. But then that's it. They move on from there. They
exactly.
Solomon doesn't say, hey, you're welcome or anything.
Yep.
Now, Hiram had sent to the king 120 talents of gold total. Here's the account of the forced labor King Solomon. Oh, I'm skipping that part. Sorry.
Lots of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of detail there.
I think we go into 10.
We're going to be into 10 here. Yep. The Queen of Sheba visits Solomon. So this is interesting. I did look up the Queen of Sheba, and she is mentioned twice in the Bible, from what I understand. All right. When the Queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon, his relationship to the Lord, she came to test Solomon with hard questions. After speaking with him, in verse 6, she said to the king, the reports I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true. And actually, she went on to say it's like above and beyond what I could have ever imagined. She was very impressed.
What she heard, yep. And so she went to visit him with lots and stuff.
She gave him 120 talents of gold, large quantities of spices and precious stones. And in return, he gave her some of his royal bounty to take home. You know, and I like saying the word bounty any chance I get. So I just had to throw that in there, because that's what it says in the Bible, the royal bounty. And she returned home. So it's a real quick kind of read there, but we didn't get into too much detail.
Well, I will just add a little bit.
Go ahead.
So she was interested to see for herself. So she brought lots of stuff. And imagine King Solomon has all these, they're in Egypt, so they have all these African lions, and she brings camels and brings all kinds of stuff. But she tested him, and he answered everything. I mean, there's nothing she can stump. I don't know if she was trying to stump him. So he was
exactly.
She was significantly impressed.
She was impressed. And also, it did not mention, like, who is this lady? And from what I read, she's it's from the South Arabian kingdom of Sabah.
Whatever that is.
All right. Solomon's splendor.
Oh, and spices. I'm going to add one more time. They brought it up, so there were so many spices that there never been that many spices given to him. So apparently she was queen of the spice too. Must be from their area. So go ahead, Randy.
So Solomon, goes on, Solomon's splendor. It goes on to say how much gold he receives yearly, and the governors of the different areas and the territories outside of his kingdom, that they sort of have power over these people. They have to contribute so much per year. Territories. And it did mention that in his palace, everything was made of gold, no silver. He also made a great throne covered with ivory, overlaid with fine gold. They went on to describe the detail of the throne, how it's decorated, and the items that are surrounding the throne. It goes on to say how great and wise, how much greater and wiser he is than all the kings.
Ever.
He has so many horses and possessions and this and that and the other thing.
So that is abundantly clear that he was the smartest, the most prolific, the richest, everything. So he has everything he could ever want.
Every possession you could ever imagine. Solomon's wives, King Solomon, in chapter 11, last chapter. He loved many, thank you. He loved many foreign women. Does anybody remember from our past videos and reading the Bible what's wrong with that?
Do not intermix. Do not marry.
So, we talked about he's married to Pharaoh's daughter. Well, he had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. Here we go.
So that's where I was getting to. This guy talks, God comes to him twice in his dream, is super impressed, gives him wisdom. So how does somebody get wisdom? Literally the smartest, wisest man ever. And then he falls to the most common trick in the Bible.
Right.
You can't stay the course.
And like we said before, he's spoken, or he has dreamt that he's spoken with the Lord, or whatever you want to call it. He hasn't spoken to these other gods that his wife leads him astray to build shrines and statues and this and that. These gods have done nothing for him. So how does that happen?
So, I guess he's driven by the wrong head. Sorry for that.
Now, it did go on to say that he grew old. Did that have something to do with it?
Yeah, you lose. I thought the wise old owl. So maybe, but maybe you lose your brain. Maybe like the.
But that would be an excuse then, wouldn't it?
Well, it's no excuse.
He's not all there.
But it doesn't matter. He is to keep. So it's not only that. They led him astray. So he didn't stay with the Lord every day like he was told to. Hey, had he done that, You know, and we can see priorities in our life, and at least I'm noticing it now. I mean, you want to keep God close to you, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons.
100%. So he blows it at the end, and we've heard this story time and time again. So the Lord says to Solomon in verse 11, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Nevertheless, for the sake of David your father, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hands of your son. Mm-hmm. So there we go. There goes the line of David. Down the tubes.
So we say, and then it's interesting.
Go ahead.
No, I'll let you. I'll wrap it up because we almost get to it. So go ahead.
He did go on to say though that for David's sake, he wants to keep a lamp for David lit in Jerusalem.
So he will keep a tribe. Yeah.
Yeah. So his Solomon's son will keep one tribe.
But so go ahead. Do you want to? I'll let you reach out. Then I'll paraphrase what we read about its adversaries.
I'm sorry, what are we doing?
Well, no, his adversaries, right? So after.
Oh yeah, Solomon's adversaries.
Yeah,
yes.
Yep. So that's kind of where we leave off with the adversaries.
Yep. So I don't know how much we want to go into here, but he did go on to say that I was going to raise. So they've had peace. They've had peace and prosperity, but no more. I'm going to raise up some adversaries against you. Hadad the Edomite from the royal line of Edom.
Yep.
There was a couple others here.
Rezin, son of Elijah,
There you go.
and then Jeroboam.
Yep.
And Jeroboam, and
Rezon.
son of Nebat, and Rezon. Oh, I said Rezon.
Rezon gathered a band of men around him, became their leader. They were going to rise up against Solomon. So Rezon was Israel's adversary as long as King Solomon lived, adding the trouble caused by Hadad. So Rezon ruled in Armon and was hostile towards Israel. So we're right back to almost where we started.
We're back to King David's time when he was always at battle. So important thing about when we went to Tyre, and it was a King Hiram that he partnered with to get the Lebanese cedar, which actually I have some seeds I bought. I'd like to plant some someday. If you ever watched Downton Abbey, those big evergreens are Lebanese cedar, so they're beautiful.
Okay.
He was able to accomplish what David couldn't because he was at peace. God granted Solomon peace because he asked for wisdom instead of asking for stuff for himself. So that was an important thing. Another important thing, as much as it's frustrating, I get is maybe it's the Elvis song, "You Never Walk Alone," right? I think that's the Elvis song. It's also Liverpool's theme song. If you watch soccer, I mean God. So even though these guys are talking, and these guys, Solomon, David, Moses, Aaron, all of them, their demise was not following what God asked them, and they're literally talking to us. So imagine us today. We're not even. God's at least not talking to me.
Yeah.
So you got, so it's more important now that we need to keep his word on our lips.
It seems unbelievable, but at the same time, if you sort of like, it's biting the hand that feeds you. It's
Exactly.
So common even today. Now, I'm not talking about a relationship with, the Lord, but I mean, maybe betraying somebody that you love, or, why would you know what I mean? You're betraying the Lord. You could betray your wife or a best friend or something like that. And it's just, it happens, right? It happens all the time.
Well, the big picture. The point is if you don't keep God under focus, bad things happen. And we see it with the most important, one of the most, David was probably the most notable king, but Solomon was the wisest of all, the richest of all. And he had it on just like Moses did, right? I'm going to take you the land of milk and honey, but he never made it.
It's just so easy to take things for granted. I mean, God comes first. I mean, even look at family. So many men or people in general just don't appreciate what they have, the family in front of them, the people that they're supposed to love more than anything in the world. Every day you just got to count your blessings and focus on what's important.
Got it. Well said, my friend.
Alrighty.
I think, thanks for joining us. Please like, subscribe, and share. Not really for us, but just to know that we have others out there that are taking this challenge, this journey.
Exactly.
It's been exciting. It is definitely a task. That's why we did this, or why we're doing this.
100%.
Can't wait. Second, we're going to probably split this in half. I'm pretty certain. I haven't read too far ahead, but I think we'll do 11 through 22 or 12 through 22 for the next video. Good. So with that being...
Peace.
Peace. Y'all come back now. You hear?
Thanks for watching.